It was truly everything that I wanted. It has books, it has friendship, it has mystery and backstabbing and banter and like school setting. A school setting? No, I won't take it. Hello everybody, it's Sara. Welcome back. Today I'm here to talk to you about all of the books that I've read in October. So I feel like spooky season went by so fast this year. I don't know what happened, but I still managed to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books during the month of October, and I found a couple of new favorites in there, so I'm really excited to talk about them with all of you. So yeah, without any further ado, let's begin. So the first book that I read in the month of October was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This was our book for the month of September over at the Tea Leaves Book Club. Just a reminder, I co-host the Tea Leaves Book Club with Mary from Mary Among Stories, Sofia from Sofiareads, and Hilary from Melted Books. We read a new-ish release every month and then we discuss about it on one of our channels. The live show for The House in the Cerulean Sea was actually on my channel, so I will link it up here if you want to hear more of our thoughts. But yeah, this book is a fantasy novel in which we follow our main character Linus Baker, who is a worker for the Department of the Protection or Care of Magical Children. I don't remember the exact title, but anyway, he is kind of like a social worker for magical children, and at the beginning of the book he is sent on a mission to Parnassus' house, in which live a couple of strange and unusual children. He has to go over there because the upper management at his department believe that those children could very much bring on the end of days. So we follow him as he goes over there and learns to know all of those children and also their caretaker, and it's such a lovely story. This book was absolutely amazing. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but if I could have given it like 10,000 stars out of 5 stars, I would have done so. It made me laugh, it made me cry. I fell in love with all of those weird children, and coming from someone who normally doesn't really love children, that says a lot, because I just loved all of them and I wanted to give all of them a hug. And I just loved how this story talked about acceptance, about caring about other people, and how you can change your life if you don't like it anymore. And it was just so lovely. We all described it as like a big hug. This is like a hug in book form. It just made me feel so happy and cozy and just like all fuzzy and warm inside because I loved every single second of it. So yes, if you haven't picked this book up yet, please do yourself a favor and do so. It is definitely the kind of story that we truly need right now, and that's why it's like one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Honestly, it's going to make that list because it was just so wonderful. Then the next book that I read was We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. This was a classic that I wanted to read for the month of September, but I actually finished it in October. And yeah, this is the story of those two sisters who live in a very big house, and there was a tragedy a couple of years ago that actually killed all of their family members. So they're the only ones still living over there with their very old uncle, and because of what happened with the other members of their family, they're despised by the people who live in the village that is nearby, so they just live this life hidden away in this big manor. And I enjoyed this book, but it didn't really blow me away. I think it's more of like a character study, and I was more hoping for a mystery or like a creepy kind of book, and it is definitely a little bit spooky and very strange and unusual, but it just like didn't have the ambiance that I was looking for. I did really enjoy our main character's perspective. I think her name is like Mary Catherine or something like that. I don't remember. I'm very bad with names. Don't ask me like any characters' names ever because I never remember them. But anyway, I really enjoyed her perspective. I thought she was very snarky. Her sense of humor was kind of spooky but also fun to read about. She was kind of, you know, that creepy kid in horror movies that everybody hates, but we were reading from her perspective, so that was actually very interesting. But yeah, overall the plot was kind of slow. Nothing really intense happened, and like I said, I was just really hoping for more atmosphere and it didn't really deliver exactly. So yeah, it was fine. I still enjoyed reading it, kinda, but it just didn't blow me away. Then the next book that I want to talk about, I actually read twice. in a row, which doesn't happen very often, and I'll explain why. But basically, that is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V. Schwab, which, if you've been following me here for a while, you know that this book was my most anticipated book of 2020, and I was really hoping that it was going to become my new favorite V. Schwab book, and sadly, it didn't. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy this book. Basically, if you don't know about this one, it follows our main character, Addie Larue, who makes a deal out of desperation with the devil because she wants to live forever. But the thing is, the devil tricks her and makes it that nobody can remember her. So she lives for 300 years and nobody ever remembers her. She cannot make an impact on the world until one day somebody remembers her. So, my thoughts about this book. This book objectively is absolutely amazing. The writing is beautiful. It's really V. Schwab at her best for the writing. Every sentence is crafted so meticulously and every word is so well chosen, and I just really love the writing in this one. There's so many beautiful quotes that I just had to stop and really think about because I was just like, oh my god, this is stunning, like chef's kiss. It was beautiful. The pacing is very slow. However, if you want an action-packed book, this is not the book for you. It is so much more about the characters than about the plot, and you can really tell that she works so hard on it because it flows so well, but also you know that it's such a big story. Like, she's talking about 300 years of this girl's life and she did it so perfectly. The characters are also so well done. They're so great and relatable, especially Hilary, who is the second main character in this book. I love him so much. So you might be wondering, like, why is this book not my new favorite V. Schwab book? And the reason for that is I don't really know. It's one of those books that I can appreciate like objectively and see how well done it is instead of really loving it and falling in love with it because of how it made me feel. Which is something that I never thought I would ever say about V. Schwab because like her books just destroy my soul every single time, and honestly I'm pretty sure it's a me thing and a moment thing. You know, like I read this book kind of like at the wrong moment because 2020 has been a rough year, and honestly sad stories right now just don't do it for me. They just don't. I just get so disconnected from it all. This is a very sad story, as you can probably guess. So yeah, I think that's probably why it didn't make me feel as much as I wanted it to, and so it kind of let me down like just a little bit. And so yeah, I was kind of sad about it, and the reason why I read it twice is because I read it once and I felt like what I just described and I was just like, no, I won't take it. So I read it a second time in the hopes that it would like literally destroy me and make me feel things, and it did. Obviously, like, it made me feel things. There's like this one page that I reposted on my Instagram story and I was just like, hello, I'm crying because Henry Strauss is just, he's me. But anyway, I have rambled enough about this book. I think maybe my expectations were too high, maybe it was just the wrong time for me to read this book, but overall it's so wonderful and it is as good as everybody is saying. Like, definitely pick this book up if you haven't already. It's so good and so wonderful. Obviously my camera had to die because she loves being dramatic. Anyway, where was I? The next book that I read after that in October was Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, and I actually buddy read this one with my very dear friend Christine from the other Christine That Reads. If you don't know about Cemetery Boys, in this one we follow our main character Yadriel, who is a part of a Brooks family, and in his family the men actually help ghosts go to the afterlife and the women are healers, and because Yadriel came out as a trans man, the people of his family are having difficulty accepting the fact that he is a real brujo. So to prove them wrong, he decides to send a ghost to the afterlife, but he actually summons the wrong ghost, and so he is stuck with that ghost, and him and his cousin Maritza have to try and send him back. And this book was just so much fun. It is definitely a very spooky adventure, perfect for this time of the year, and the characters are just all so lovable. I also really love to be completely immersed in the Latinx culture that we see in this book. That was definitely one of my favorite parts. All of the folklore and all of that was just absolutely amazing. The romance is also super fun and very sweet. I love the two main characters' chemistry and how they grew with one another, and yeah, overall it was an amazing adventure and I really enjoyed it. Then the next book that I read was Edenbrooke by Julianne Donaldson. This is a Regency era romance in which we follow our main character who is invited to Edenbrooke by her sister, who is basically telling her in her letters that she has found the man that she wants to marry. And so our main character goes over there to meet this gentleman, and obviously a lot of drama and romance ensues. This book was definitely a little bit ridiculous, but to be honest, that is one of the reasons why I enjoyed it. Like, everything that you can think of when it comes to Regency era romance tropes happens in this one. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of like romantic walks and longing and staring across the room and all of that. It's just so enjoyable and I had a lot of fun reading it. So yeah, it wasn't the best book ever in terms of craft and intrigue and like character development or whatever, but it was just very entertaining and that is what I wanted from it, so very satisfied. Then the next book that I read was very different, and that book was Pour qui je me prends by Hilary Saint-Martin. This is a French book, obviously, as you can probably tell, and it was actually written by my master's director, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but let me tell you, this book was so good. And this one, she basically tells the story of how she decided to leave Ontario and come and live over in Quebec and learn French because she never felt really at home in the English language and where she lived in Ontario. And so when she first started to learn French in elementary school, it's like a whole world was open to her and she finally belonged. So she decided to move over here in Quebec because in Quebec people predominantly speak French, so she decided to come over here and start her life anew. So yeah, this is a book about belonging, about your relationships with your family and how complicated they can be, and also about just changing your life and just deciding for yourself. And it was really good and very moving, and I loved how she talked about her relationship with the different languages that she speaks because it was super fascinating and definitely very interesting. So if you can read French, definitely read this one. It is truly a gem. Then the next book that I read was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This was the classic that I wanted to read in the month of October, and if you remember in my October TBR, I actually said that I did not really think that I was going to enjoy this book, and I actually ended up really enjoying it more than what I thought. I'm pretty sure you're all very familiar with the story of Frankenstein. I don't really think that I need to give you a synopsis. So yeah, I'd heard from so many people that this book is actually not creepy at all and it's just boring, and so I went into this one with very low expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised because I did really enjoy the writing and most of the story. I think that the plot dragged a little bit and sometimes it was a little bit too overly dramatic for my taste, but you know, that's the romantic era for you. They're just very intense. So yeah, it was almost funny sometimes in the way that things were said, or like in the way that the characters would react to certain things. I was just like, oh my god. Especially the main character, Victor Frankenstein, he was just very intense. This book had been described to me by my sister as these two men complaining for 200 pages straight, and it is definitely that. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but it was also very interesting. I love how it talked about human nature and belonging and prejudice and all of those things, and the writing was very beautiful. So it was sometimes a little bit long, and especially at the end I was just like, okay, can we wrap this up? Like, it's dragging a little bit, but overall I enjoyed my experience way more than I thought I would, and Mary Shelley is still an icon. I just love her so much. She's so cool. And then finally, the last book that I read was Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane, and I am so happy to say that this book was so good. If you don't know about Ink and Bone, it is the first book in the Great Library series, which is a fantasy series that centers around this very big library, which basically rules everything when it comes to knowledge and information and books. So they actually own all of the books throughout the world, and they control everything that has to do with knowledge. And our main character, Jess, is actually a part of the book black market. So he sneaks books out of the library's grasp and he resells them and all of that, until he's actually sent away by his father to train and become a librarian because they want to infiltrate the actual library. And this is the beginning of this book, and it was so much fun. I had so much fun reading this book. I got really attached to all of the characters because as Jess is evolving into the library's system, he's meeting other characters that are also aspiring librarians, and like the banter, the competition between all of them, it was just so good. And there's also a very big mystery at the center of the series, and I just could tell, and I just want to know what is going to happen next. So yeah, it has been a while since I was this enthusiastic about a new fantasy series, and I'm just so happy that I read this book because it was truly everything that I wanted. It has books, it has friendship, it has mystery and backstabbing and banter and like school setting. I was just, anyway, I'm so happy about this series and I cannot wait to read the rest of it. I'm currently waiting for the second book at the library, and I just, oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be so good. And if the other books are as good as this first one was, I do believe that I have found a new favorite fantasy series. I don't want to speak too soon, but like, it's so good. I'm so excited to keep on going. I think it's going to be so dramatic and so intense, and yeah, I just can't wait to see what all of those characters are up to next. So, oh my god, yeah, I definitely ended the month on a very good note this time. Alright, so there you all have it. These are all of the books that I've read in the month of October. Let me know down below what was your favorite book that you've read this month, because I would really love to know. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!